Today we'll have a look at physiognomy of the presidential election for this year. And what I've done here is shown you some pictures around the morphing into phase of aging into who you are. This is a fairly common trend around physiognomic studies and analyses, and it's to show that the inner soul finds a way to make itself known without. That is to say, we can seek to propitiate, the wider world with our soul, but eventually nature will win in the end, and the nature of the soul, the most powerful of all. You can also see here I've looks matched the dog with the presidential candidate, or vice presidential candidate, just to give you an idea of the expectations around who fits what mold. So at the top we have Donald Trump. Fairly young, go-getter, ambitious guy. Looks like he's fairly well trustworthy, but still shrewd. That old Germanic head with a bit more of a long-distance stare, and I think we can for sure say that he would have been not as blessed had he not grown up with a rich father. So there's a sense of nepotism about the way that he looks, but in a way that he's grown and lived into that justified, smug, supercilious notions. And I think in general he's still quite approachable and amenable and friendly, outgoing disposition. He is matched here with a golden retriever, fairly distinct I think, and quite a good comparison. On the opposite end of the spectrum, in terms of political stance, is Kamala, with her poodle-esque visage. So we can relate a lot, I think, to her, and the notion that a poodle is basically a show dog who loves attention. Kamala doesn't really have any positions, is more or less approbated that she's a puppet, and there's no function other than to be the face of what is an artificial movement. She's basically the, I would say, denuded but more milquetoast version of an Obama campaign, so Obama Part 2. What Obama could get through, though, in a style of rhetoric in which he was able to, like a newscaster, read lines very well, she's quite a lot more inferior, and I think in general has less appeal other than we can pony her up and then take her to the dog show with a haircut and some nice clothes. So if you want to vote for a poodle, not my king of the hounds, but yeah. Then looking at vice presidential candidates, I think it's still quite good to get an impression of what the outreach is supposed to be from a who is this person's vote trying to be captured. Here we have J.D. Vance with what looks to me as a bit more mountain dog stare, so kind of a goofy loner vibe, with the stern, at least, expression of one who is comfortable waiting and is able to have, you might call it, a sentinel aspect. So here I think it's the kind of puffy fat face he's grown into, showing that there's been a lot of stolid and indolent behavior associated with how he lives his life, not exercising, not energizing, but still having reserves of some, you almost call it noble but patrimonial behaviors, whereby we can assess him as probably being a man who has his own mission in his mind, and that he'll probably at some point try to implement said mission, regardless of how you feel about anything else on his political stances. I think in general we can view him fairly well as this sort of goofy loner growing into what is a solitude, but this, as I say, sentinel type figure. And then lastly, Tim Volz. Tim being this almost, I've picked here a Sharpei mix, but I don't want to call him necessarily a normie, but he's definitely got that banal, almost vapid look to him, where he could be and was a Midwestern teacher with no principles, only the good friendly vibe notions. But as we see here, he's gone from what would have been probably quite a snarky and you almost want to say rebellious look in his youth to this much more curmudgeonly, fastidious old man slash what looks to be as a more functioning pervert rather than say alcoholic. So something along that line of I wouldn't trust him near my kids or something like that. And I think that's fairly solid from what we've seen in terms of his demeanor and the way he expresses himself and how he concerns himself with very weird policies around reproductive issues and all sorts of feel-goodery but progressive notions. And I think a man with no principles like that is usually trying to please everybody, but also in some way ingratiate himself. And then obviously it's popularity to esteem channel where he's trying to funnel all this goodwill into his little cold dead heart. So here we go. There's our presidential race in physiognomy terms.